Hello, everyone. Welcome into yet another Golden Sombrero show. I'm Dominic Stern, joined as always by Ryan Blank, Cole Bradley. Guys, pitchers and catchers reported. That's always a sign of the times. Baseball is returning. Full spring training workouts will begin sometime this week for a lot of teams, also continuing into next week. And games start in just under 2 weeks. Guys, I cannot wait for baseball games to be back in full swing. We got a few things to touch up on. And then later today, we'll give our catcher and pitcher rankings, both relievers and starters, in honor of pitchers and catchers reporting this week. So, Cole, Ryan, how are you guys this morning?
Good, man. Happy baseball's back.
I'm excited to have baseball back.
Yes, it's going to be exciting for sure. And hopefully my team can not let me down this year. But we got a few moves that went down this week. We'll start with how they went in chronological order. The first one being Trevor Rosenthal signing a one-year, $11 million deal with the Oakland Athletics. I know Ryan and I, we both wanted him to go to our respective teams. That, of course, did not happen. But the weirdest part about this deal was that it was actually had referrals. So Rosenthal will not be getting all of his money in 1 year, and it will be spread out amongst a couple of years, which I found was fascinating because if you're doing a 1 year deal, it should normally just be a 1 year thing. But the way it's worked out is Rosenthal will make $3 million in 2021, $3 million in 2022, and $5 million in 2023. So the Oakland A's, a notable small market franchise that just refuses to spend money, they went out and they paid a free agent, but they're not putting all the money into one breadbasket. So let me ask, what do you guys think of the acquisition? And then what do you guys think of the contract? And we'll start with Cole.
I didn't really see the referrals you were talking about, but just overall, from the contract standpoint, I mean, this is a team that needed to replace Liam Hendricks, who is, I mean, we'll get to Liam Hendricks later, believe me. But replacing him is no small task. I mean, he's one of the best at what he does. And Trevor Rosenthal is definitely a step in the right direction. I mean, the A's are a team that's not going to go and shell out big money to a guy like Hendricks for the long term, especially since he's a reliever and, he's not the most valuable position on the field. I'm sure they'd much rather be spending that money elsewhere. But Rosenthal for 1 year, I mean, you at least bridge the gap until next year before you have to sort of maybe think about filling that role at some point. Even if they didn't sign Rosenthal, that bullpen is probably one of the deepest in baseball. I think it's definitely been one of the deeper ones in baseball for a long time now. They did lose Soria as well to Arizona this offseason. So, I mean, they've definitely taken some hits, but bringing in a guy like Trevor Rosenthal, who has had no shortage of experience in this league and has no shortage of success, definitely speaks for itself. So I like the signing on the basis of, they're definitely helping replace what they've lost. It's not 100%, bandaging the wounds, so to speak, but it's definitely going to help. He's going to be their closer, and he's going to be good. So I like the deal on that basis. Again, it's one of those low-risk, high-reward contracts. It's a 1 year deal. $11 million is a little bit for a reliever, but, he's probably going to appear in a lot of games for them, especially in the back end. I know the A's played a lot of close games this past year, and, that's sort of their bread and butter. So, I think he's going to be really good for him, and I just like the deal solely on that.
Ryan?
It hurts that not the Royals or Padres got him, personally, because that's where the two teams I wouldn't mind him being. But this is a great signing for the Athletics. They've had a tough offseason, losing big guys with the bullpen and Soria and Hendricks, and then in the infield losing their entire middle duo of Simeon and Listella. So, honestly, I think it's a great signing. Any referral deal just gives me Bobby Bonilla vibes. So, but honestly, I think it's a great deal. I think that the contract is weird. Any referral deal is weird, but I'm not going to complain. I think that the Athletics knew they had to get a guy to shore up that bullpen, and that's what they got. They got someone who was extremely dominant last year.
Yeah, Ryan and I, we saw firsthand how good Trevor Rosenthal was. Ryan getting to watch really the first month of Rosenthal's season, and then me getting to watch his second month of the season after he was traded to the Padres. So we saw firsthand how good he was. He was phenomenal. The fastball was lively. The changeup was lethal. And the cutter just was a mixture of between the two pitches. He was fantastic. Now the question is, can he avoid the arm injuries that he had in the past couple of years, stay healthy? Because if he can, it's going to be a great signing for the A's. And another question is, can he remain good? Because we'd seen the years prior to 2020, it was a little shaky. And of course, that was in part because of the arm injuries. But in 2020, he was fantastic. Didn't allow a single run for the Padres in the regular season. Postseason was a different story. But those were non-safe situations, so it doesn't really matter because it seems like he's going to be the closer in Oakland, and fantastic closer last year. If you can build up on that season, that is certainly, like Cole mentioned, a great way to bridge the gap from Hendricks, because we'll give our reliever rankings at the end of the podcast, and I mean, I have Hendricks at number 1, so it's tough to replace him, but you got to find somewhere to give you a chance, and I think Rosenthal at least gives you a chance. Next, the move that, of course, happened to my team, Fernando Tatis Jr. and the Padres reached a 14-year agreement worth $340 million, and it's a lot of money to pay a 22-year-old, but Fernando Tatis Jr. has been an absolute stud so far in his first 2 years in baseball. His rookie year, of course, got cut short due to 2 injuries. And then second year was only 60 games. He was fantastic, was the front runner for MVP. And then he had a 2-week stretch where he was just terrible. And he still finished in 4th in MVP voting. Fantastic player. Love him. I'm excited that he's going to be a Padre for the next 14 years. I want your guys' thoughts on this extension. Ryan, I know we've talked about it, but what were your thoughts on this?
Personally, I would have waited a little bit, maybe a year, because for me, I need to see him play more than 100 games. I needed to see him at least go 130 games. This is nothing against Fernando Tatis. He is the next face of baseball, and he is a star. One of the most electric players that the MLB has to offer. Nothing against how he plays or the way he plays. He is an insane player, and he deserves the money. I just would have waited to get him, to have him prove that he's durable, that he can play a full season. That's my only thing. I think the contract's insane because it's kind of a steal because he's worth $24 million easily. I think that the Padres did great work this offseason, and I think this is the perfect way to cap it off by signing your star long-term. I think the funny thing is that the last year of his contract is the last year of Bobby Bonilla's day of getting paid.
Bobby Bonilla will get paid 1 year before.
Oh, is it 1 year before?
Or 1 year? He'll get paid. So the contract is up in 2034, and Bobby Bonilla, the last Bobby Bonilla day is July 1st, 2035.
I thought it was up to 35.
No, it's 34.
34.
My math was wrong.
All right, so with Tatis, the fact that he's only going to be 35 or 36 when this contract is over is insane as well. Locked him up when he's young, and when his peak, he's nowhere close to it yet. So it's a great job by the Padres to lock up your star and to have him long term. Personally, I would have waited a year. And of course, people are going to say, oh, his value would go up. Honestly, I wouldn't mind paying him more if his value went up to see him prove that he can play 130 to 162 games a year. But overall, great signing.
Colt?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot that hasn't already been said that, that I feel. I mean, I think in my opinion, the undisputed future face of baseball, he is more than deserving of this money. I don't care that he hasn't played 100 games yet. Just watching him play on television, I mean, if you're a baseball fan, it doesn't take much to recognize the fact that he's special. Like there's a quality about him, that's just unlike anything I've personally ever seen. And that alone, I think, is the selling point for me. I think he's worth it. I think he's going to be good until the end of his days. The one thing I definitely want to touch on that I personally was a little bit outraged about, just saw a lot of feedback on Twitter in particular where people were saying that him signing in a quote-unquote middle market is bad for baseball. Like, this is bad for baseball. And what I have to say about that is if he signed with a big market, which, I mean, it's California. Like, I mean, it isn't Los Angeles, sure, but it's California. I mean, that baseball is huge in California. The fact that he didn't sign with, that this isn't happening on a team like the Yankees or the Dodgers, it's not bad for the game. If anything, it's expanding the game. I think more and more over this past year, in particular, I've realized I've seen more and more people come out and say, that they've started to really enjoy baseball and enjoy the Padres in particular more than any other team in baseball. And if anything, I'd say that this is a tidal shift. I'd say that if this keeps up and if the Padres continue to be aggressive and if say 5 years down the line from now, the Padres have a World Series or two under their belt and they're one of the more competitive teams in the National League and just in all of baseball, then I'd consider them the larger market. I'd consider them the better team. I mean, as of right now, that's not the case. They have something to prove. But, I mean, hypothetically, 5 years down the line, are people going to be saying that about the signing? Heck no. I think it's great for baseball. I think Fernando Tatis Jr. is the most marketable player in baseball right now. I mean, more and more you've seen commercials of this dude on television. That's what you get paying him $340 million over the next 14 years. You get the most, in my opinion, the most marketable and the face of baseball, like undisputedly. And that's worth more than any amount of money can buy. I mean, his play on the field is one thing, which we all know what he can do on the field, but that stuff that comes with it, bringing in those extra fans, being more marketable, that's something that you can't teach. That's something that just sort of comes with the guy, and he has that. He's a special kind of player. I think he's worth every dime, and I think that's going to be proven over each of the next 14 years. I wish him nothing but the best. I think he's as fun to watch as the next guy. And I can't wait to see what he does, quite honestly. But I mean, huge mistake, in my opinion, for people saying that this is bad for baseball because he's not signing in a large market. Like, that's just bullcrap. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's just what I think about it. I think it's great. Good for him. Good for the Padres. They're locking up their face for the next 14 years. I mean, I couldn't be more happy for him.
Dom, if I may say something, I think it's ridiculous that I've seen people say the same thing, Cole. There has been a competitive imbalance in baseball with how large markets can get all these star players and how once a team breeds a star from out of a prospect, they lose them because they can't afford them. The best thing for baseball is to have these big-name guys play and stay in the smaller to middle markets. I think it's the best thing that baseball can have. The Padres are one of the most exciting teams. And I think that when you have a team that doesn't spend a lot of money, lock up multiple guys and spend money, I think it's the best thing for baseball because that means the competitive balance is really starting to shape more. So I think it's horrible that people would say that.
Yeah, no, those comments were stupid. I paid no attention to them. And Padres fans had their way. I know Buster Olney is a big Padres hater for reasons that I don't need to get into on this podcast. And he has his Baseball Tonight podcast, which I'm actually a big fan of, would recommend to anyone. You're getting insider information from very experienced baseball journalists. Anyways, and his producer makes some of the worst takes I've ever heard on that podcast. So I wasn't surprised to see him saying it was objectively bad for baseball if Fernando Tatis Jr. signed with the Padres. And like I said, I paid no attention to it. Padres fans did. They let him hear it, and that's their job. That's not my job to do. So it was exciting, and it was funny because Kevin Acee, the San Diego Union Tribune writer for the Padres, was supposed to go on a local radio show earlier that afternoon at like 1 o'clock. And like 15 minutes before, he had to cancel. So Padres fans knew something was up, and this had been rumored all offseason. The Padres were going to try and get this done. And at that point, there was no moves that the Padres could make to like improve the roster. So like it was like, okay, this could be happening today. And then like 10 minutes before it was tweeted out, you could search up Fernando Tatis Jr. extension, and there was an article link to the San Diego Union Tribune saying Fernando Tatis Jr. signs 14-year extension. But there's no article to it. So Padres fans knew about it like 10 minutes before it happened. And it was really funny. Then everyone texted me like, yo, did you see it? I'm like, saw it like 15 minutes ago, guys. I'm very well aware. I'm very well traversed in what's going on in Padres world. So that was really funny. And I think it's awesome for the Padres. 14 years, it's going to be awesome because he's already one of the best shortstops in all of baseball. We all ranked him in the top 5. He's an incredible player. Like you guys mentioned, he's super marketable. I mean, I bought this totally authentic jersey. I had never bought a totally authentic jersey of Fernando Tatis Jr., but I felt like it was necessary. And I bought this before his season last year. Padres fans just know you have to be able to rep Tatis, and it's going to be an incredible future. And some of the details of the contract, yeah, it's $14,340, but the first 4 years of the contract, he's not even making $40 million because they're taking up his arbitration years and keeping that money low. And then when he'd be set to make free agency, all of a sudden, then he's making over $30 million per year. So the Manny Machado contract, which of course was 10 years, $300 million, is now only interfering with the $30+ million of Fernando Tatis Jr.'s contract for 3 years. So that's only 3 years of like huge financial commitment from the San Diego Padres. And I believe Eric Hosmer is only in there for one of those years. It might be 0. I'm not sure. So the Padres aren't tied that heavily financially that far down the line. Now, right now, with Will Myers, Eric Hosmer, Manny Machado, and a couple of the other pitchers that are making around $10-15 million, they have a top 5 payroll in baseball. So they can still go out in a couple of years and pay to buy other players and keep the team good. So the Padres will be fine down the road, still have top prospects in baseball, 4, 5, 7 top 100 prospects, according to a couple of the big lists. So they're still in a really good spot to be good. It's going to be exciting, and I can't wait for what the future holds for Fernando Tatis Jr. and, of course, the Padres. So let's move on. One more thing to talk about. Taijuan Walker, starting pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays last year and for the Arizona Diamondbacks, I guess, the year before, signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with the New York Mets. What do you guys think of that? We'll start with you, Cole.
Well, I think it's great. And honestly, I mean, there was a lot of really solid starting pitchers out on the market this past offseason. And I mean, I think it's kind of criminal that it's been this long before this guy was signed. I mean, there was plenty of teams, I think, that were looking to add depth to their rotations. And I mean, after the year Walker had, which was one of the better ones in his career, I mean, he's definitely had his injury troubles over the past couple seasons, but I mean, he definitely settled in, to say the least, this past year. During this past year, I think it's great to see him go somewhere else, and I think the Mets really got a really solid guy for the back end of their rotation, and maybe even for a long relief role in their bullpen. We'll see. I'm sure they're going to implement him in the rotation, but yeah, I think he's really solid. And I mean, cheap deal. Guy doesn't cost that much money. Yeah, I mean, that's all you can really say about it. I mean, he was good this past year, and I think he's going to be good with the Mets. I think the Tigers should have honestly got him. I know the Tigers were in on him for a while, but didn't grab him. And, you know, that's a solid player right there. So I'm definitely surprised more teams didn't pursue him and try and go out and get him. So good for the Mets to sign this guy. Probably a pretty underrated sign heading into the future.
Right.
I like the signing. I thought it was very good. I thought that was a move that I expected the Mets to make, was to go after a guy like Walker or even Odorizzi to get that final piece for their rotation, because they were in on Bauer, they were in on multiple pitching players, whether it was the bullpen or the rotation, and they didn't get him. I know they were also big on Trevor Rosenthal, didn't get him. So I really like Taijuan Walker. I expected him to go back to the Blue Jays, but that was not the case. I think that looking at the Mets, they have a top 5 rotation easily right now. As long as they stay healthy. If they stay healthy, then that's a top 5 rotation. Knowing the Mets, they won't stay healthy. So it won't be. But on paper, it looks very good. And having a guy like Taijuan Walker, who once he was traded to Toronto, had a 1.37 ERA. He was terrific with the Blue Jays. So I think that he is going to be a big piece of the rotation. I think the Mets really thought they needed to shore up the rotation. I think out of the guys that were out there to sign, Walker was one of the top ones. So it was a good move.
Yeah, I really thought the Blue Jays dropped the ball here, considering how weak and how big of a question mark the rotation is. To let him go to the Mets, who frankly already have a pretty solid rotation, like Ryan said, for $10 million a year, I think the Blue Jays really messed up there. But great deal for the Mets. I'm a big Taijuan Walker fan. Health is, of course, the biggest issue, and their rotation has so many question marks regarding health. It's incredible. I mean, besides Jacob deGrom and Carlos Carrasco, who's really getting up there in age, you have Syndergaard coming off Tommy John, Marcus Stroman, who didn't pitch a single inning last year and has had some arm issues in the past. Love the guy, but he has some issues. David Peterson, he's a rookie coming up. And Taijuan Walker, he only pitched one inning in 2019, and that was in the final game of the year. He's had some issues before that in the past. So they have some issues. I wouldn't put that rotation top 5 now. I mean, if they're all perfectly healthy, then yeah, of course they're top 5. But we all know that's, one, not going to happen because of the Mets, and 2, because those guys all have recent arm issues. So it's just not going to happen. But the Mets, they're reassuring themselves that they are going to be a playoff team this year, which is fascinating because they got last. And in baseball, it's really rare to see a team go from worst to first. But I think the Mets are a candidate to do that this year. Now, the Braves and really everyone in the NL East is going to have something to say about that. But it'll be a fascinating race out there east. So let's move over to our rankings portion of this podcast. We took 22 minutes talking about those 3 moves, so we're going to have to go a little quicker than our previous episodes for these rankings. But let's start with catchers. I'm going to start just because I'm talking, and my number 5 catcher here is going to be Travis d'Arnaud. In my opinion, there's a pretty clear top 5 catchers in baseball, and whatever order you want to put them in is totally up to you. I decided to go with d'Arnaud 5th just because it seems to me like he hadn't had a good past, and then he reconfigured himself in Tampa Bay. And then in the 60-game season, he was a phenomenal hitter. I'm going to put him at 5. I could certainly justify putting him at 3 if I wanted to as well, but he certainly belongs in the top 5. And the Braves got an absolute steal here. So, Ryan, who's your 5th catcher?
I agree with you. It's d'Arnaud. He was insane this year. He was a big piece of that offense for the Braves, and I think that he needed to get out of New York. He needed to. And ever since he left there, he has really shaped himself and revived his career in a sense. So yeah, he's number 5 for me.
Yeah, I mean it's a trifecta. I got d'Arnaud at number 5 as well. I think he's more than deserving of being a top 5 catcher. I honestly was debated putting him in the top 3. I mean, over the past 2 years in particular, no one's flown under the radar and performed, I think, better than Travis d'Arnaud, or has had the most upward trajectory as far as offensively as the catchers are concerned. And he had a great postseason this last year. So hopefully he can keep it up. But he's definitely number 5 for me.
All right. We're unanimous at 5. Let's see if we're unanimous at 4. Cole, I'll swing it right back to you. Who do you have at number 4?
One sec.
Cool.
Sorry. Sorry. Salvador Perez. I have Perez at number 4. I thought he had a really nice bounce back year. I think he's been one of the better catchers ever since he came into the league. I mean, defensively and as far as his arm is concerned, I don't even know if there's anyone better. The plays that guy's made behind the plate in his career are absolutely insane. So yeah, I have him at number 4.
I also have Salvador Perez at 4. Another guy I could have justified putting him at 3 in front of my number 3 guy, but I decided to put him at 4 just because there's still some questions about his health coming back from an injury. But we all know he was a top 5 catcher before he got hurt, and then I didn't want to put him in my top 5 last year just because I wanted to see him do it. and he did it, and that's why he's in my top 5 this year. He's at number 4. Ryan, I know he's your guy. Did you put him at number 3, number 4?
I did not put him at number 4.
That's fair.
You're going to hate where I put him. I'll say it that way.
You probably have him at number 2. But who's your number 4 catcher?
You'll find out. My number 4, even though he had a career low year, I actually put Wilson Contreras. I like Wilson Contreras. I still think he is a solid catcher. All the drama with the Cubs and how they're just tearing it down, I think he's the next guy to get moved. And maybe he needs a fresh start. I think that he has proved that he can be a very solid defender and he can be a very solid hitter. So that's why I have Wilson Contreras there. It's easy that you can drop him after a career low year, but I'm still going to keep him there as I think he's going to bounce back.
All right. Wilson Contreras is my number 6 catcher. He missed my list just barely. Number 3, I have Will Smith, Dodgers catcher. He's been so impressive his first 2 years. He's been one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball. Calls a very good game behind home plate. His one weakness is his ability to throw out base runners when they are stealing. The Padres have run all over him so far in his first 2 years. That's his only downside. Otherwise, I would debate putting him at number 2. He's been fantastic so far in his career. It scares me how good he's going to be. Hopefully he can fall off. But I was looking at Baseball Savant stats. Someone actually just tweeted this. And in terms of their percentiles that they put on Baseball Savant, he was in the top 10% in 9 of the 10 hitting categories, which is really impressive. We'll see if that's sustainable, but he's been super impressive. I put him at number 3. Cole, who do you have at number 3?
I have Wilson Contreras. I am also a Wilson Contreras believer. I think he's definitely one of the better all-around catchers and one of the better young stars in the league today. I think, like Ryan said, I think he's going to get dealt at some point. I think it's just inevitable with what the Cubs are doing. But yeah, I think he's been solid. I mean, he's not a guy who's going to, light things up and hit for high average or anything. He hit 243 this past year, but he did hit 272 in 2019, was an all-star. I think he's a guy who can definitely take that next step and become, an even better hitter. But I mean, as far as, an all-around catcher is concerned, I think he checks all the boxes. He's definitely proved that he can play that position well defensively. And I think he's going to only get better. So I have him at number 3.
I have Yasmani Grandal at 3. I think Yasmani Grandal is a top 3 catcher easily. I think he's got the bat, and I hate that he's in the AL Central. Pisses me off. But that's just how good he is. He's got a great bat. He's really improved defensively over his career. He's a very good defender now. The one issue I have with him is that he doesn't hit for average. His best hitting season came in his rookie year in 2012 with the Padres when he hit 297. Since then, his highest was in 2017 when he hit 247 with the Dodgers. He's got the power, no doubt. I need to see him hit for more average.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's got a 348 career OBP, and at the end of the day, if you're Yasmani Grandal, singles and walks are the same thing. And with his speed, it's tough because if he hits the ball on the ground, he's out. That's the reality of it. He needs to unhitch the trailer, as one would say. And I put him at number 2 here. I've loved him ever since he came up in the bigs as a Padre. Then, of course, he was traded. And the Matt Kemp trade that ultimately was just a complete and utter failure for the San Diego Padres. And ever since then, he's blossomed into one of the best catchers in all baseball. He gets the reputation of being a bad defensive catcher, and that's just simply not true. He's one of the best game callers in all baseball, really good framer. Now, he is slow, so sometimes you'll see him miss some blocks, but at the end of the day, you'll take that considering that he's one of the best hitting catchers in all baseball. Really good game caller, really good framer. So you'll take a couple of missed blocks and some balls out in front of you. He can't quite make the play because he's not as fast. It's the reality of it, but I put him at number 2. Cole, do you have the same?
I do, yes. I mean, you guys pretty much covered it. I think, like you said, Dom, I think there's been this common misconception that he's bad defensively, and like you said, that's just not true. I mean, he's he's definitely one of, if not the best defensively at his position. And that's there's something to be said about that. And, catchers are primarily not, traditionally to be seen as guys who are offense first. There's not a whole lot of offense first catchers in baseball. It's always been that way. It's such a tough position to, focus, your entire game on both facets, when some guys would just say, I just need to call a game. I just need to be a good game caller, a good field general. And other guys, it's like, I don't need to do that. I want to, bash the ball or whatever. But this is one of those guys who just does it well both ways. I mean, yeah, he's got the power. I mean, he crushes everything. He gets on base. Yeah, he doesn't hit for the highest average, but again, he gets on base. And that's all you can ask out of a guy who, again, is having to suit up every single day and catch pitches and, get to know a pitching staff day in and day out. Like that's a lot to ask for. And I think he checks all the boxes as far as everything you want in a catcher. So yeah, he's my number 2.
Yeah, Don was right. I put Salvi at 2. And let me tell you why. No matter all the injuries I said, he's come off a torn ACL, excuse me, then Tommy John surgery, still lighting it up on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. You can barely run on Salvador Perez. He's one of the best defensive catchers in the league. He has been for years. His bat continues to get better. Last season was arguably the best season I've seen out of him offensively. And maybe you don't see it in the stats, but overall, despite him getting up there, he's trending towards 30, but he is still so dominant. And every year that he has played, 333 average last year. And I know it's only from 37 games, but he was lighting the ball. He was lighting it up offensively. He was hitting the cover off the ball. With Jorge Soler having a very much down year last year, Perez made up for it when he was healthy and when he was playing by his ability to get on base, drive in runs, and just manufacture and be the engine of the offense along with Whit Merrifield. So, of course, you can say I'm biased. I love Salvador Perez. I am scared that the Royals have not signed him to an extension yet, but overall, he's easily a top 3 catcher. You will know, I swear, if the Padres get Salvador Perez, I am jumping off a building.
Why do you make me want us to get Salvador Perez even more now, Ryan?
How about this? If anyone gets Salvador Perez, I'm jumping off a building. If there is one guy on this team that I want to retire a Royal, it's Salvador Perez. He is not leaving. Do not even think about it, San Diego.
No, the Padres catching situation is
you just got Austin Nola. You just got Austin Nola.
Yeah, I know. Austin Nola and Luis Campusano, one of the best catching prospects in all baseball.
It's going to be really good.
Padres are fine. I thought the Padres had a serious chance of trading for him at the trade deadline, but they opted not. I think it's
more of a better chance of Whit, and you know how impossible that nearly was.
Right. So it didn't seem feasible, but he's a great catcher. Like I said, I put him in a top 5. I just didn't have him at number 2 like you did. Number 1, I think we all have him, JT Realmuto, best catcher in baseball. The Phillies gave up a lot to get him, and they signed him to a pretty massive deal, especially for a catcher. We'll see how that pays off, but for the time being, he's the best catcher in baseball. Really good defensively. He's pretty damn fast, and he had such a good hitting season last year. After his first 2 years in the bigs, he's been a really consistent hitting catcher, and he's the best catcher in baseball. And if you think otherwise, then I don't know what to tell you. There's other guys that are close. This is a pretty solid catcher rankings. I mean, last year it was tough to rank guys. I mean, we had Mitch Garver at 3. He was terrible last year. So it was tough. I mean, there's a pretty clear top 6. I thought that the top 5 I ranked were better than Wilson Contreras, but I get it. Wilson's a great guy. I thought the Padres were going to trade for him last offseason, but they didn't. And Padres are in a fine situation now. They took the backup instead. So we'll see how things go from there. That's our top 5 catchers. So, Ryan, I'm going to play a little game with you. I'm holding either a 1 or a 2 below my camera. If you guess correctly, you get to pick starter or reliever. If not, I will make Cole pick.
2
All right. What do you want? Starters or relievers first?
starters.
Okay. All right. I'll let Cole start with his number 5 starting pitcher.
I have Walker Buehler at number 5.
Okay.
I think Walker Buehler, unfortunately, is one of the best starting pitchers in our game, and it's been that way ever since 2018 when he was a rookie. 2.62 ERA that year, 3.26 the year after. He had a 3.44 this past year in limited starts because I'm pretty sure there was some going on at the beginning of the year. He only pitched in 36 and 2/3 innings, but he struck out 42. This guy's a strikeout machine. He's got electric stuff. I don't like the Dodgers, but I will say if there's one guy who I really enjoy watching, it's him. The way he just pitches and the way he throws the ball. I mean, it's electric. It's something. It's a sight to behold, and he's going to be a good pitcher for a long time. Unfortunately, as well. This is all very unfortunate, but I mean, I think he's a top 5 starter in the game, and that's saying something considering that he hasn't even played 3 full seasons or 4 full seasons yet. Not even 3 full seasons yet, and he's not even 30 yet. Because there's a lot of really good starting pitchers in this league, but I think he's got to be in the top 5, so I have him at 5.
Ryan, who's your 5th best pitcher in all baseball?
For me, it was tough because
It was. There's a clear
There's
top
so
3,
much
and after
talent.
that, there's like 15 guys you can put here. It's insane.
Buehler was my number 7. So close. And he is my bounce back candidate this year. I expect him to light it up. My number 5 is Max Scherzer. Just his track record, I can't just put that away. What he's done is insane. Wherever he's played, he's lit it up, and he has been one of the best pitchers in baseball. That's all I really have to say about him. He's incredible.
Yeah, I also opted to leave Walker Buehler off my list. It just felt like, he's a Dodger, and there's other guys I could have put in front of him that, like, I'm not going to get slack for. So I chose to do that. Now there's another Dodger in my top 5, but I also have Max Scherzer at 5. I mean, just what he's done over the past couple of years is nothing short of incredible. In 2016, he won the Cy Young. In 2017, he won the Cy Young. In 2018, he finished in 2nd. In 2019, he finished in 3rd. And then last year, he made 12 starts, which was the mark that all starting pitchers, that was their max given the 60-game season. He didn't have a great year, especially Max Scherzer terms. 3.74 ERA. It's his worst season since 2012 and 2011 with the Detroit Tigers. And a 1.381 whip. That is his worst whip of his career. But at the same time, he was also on a team that was just never in the playoff race in the middle of the pandemic. So he still went out and gave his team innings, and I respect him for that. He was certainly higher. He fell a little bit on the list last year. Absolutely had him in front of Shane Bieber last year. Absolutely had him in front of my number 4 guy that I'll get into later. But I kept him in my top 5. I'm honoring what he's done in the past couple of years, but it was tough because there were guys like Walker Buehler, Jack Flaherty, Justin Verlander, Clayton Kershaw, other guys that I had to leave off my list that are just fantastic starting pitchers. Even 2 Padres that I really wanted to put in the top 5, but I didn't because I don't think they're top 5 pitchers in all baseball. So number 4, Ryan, I'm going to swing it back to you. Who's your number 4 starting pitcher in baseball?
Trevor Bauer.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you guys don't want to hear it. I know you don't. He was, and I know you guys can make the argument, he was pitching against the AL Central and the NL Central last year. But he has a track record of excellence. Yeah, he's had a couple of down years, but he has just been a guy that whenever you need innings and a big performance, you look to Trevor Bauer. And I expect him to light it up this year and in the coming years in Dodger blue. And I know you two aren't excited for it, but I just find it funny with free agency this year. The Padres are making all these trades to get Darvish and Snell, and the Dodgers just dish out $100 million to Trevor Bauer. So, no, he's insane. He won Cy Young for a reason. So, I'm going to give it to Trevor Bauer as my number 4.
Yeah, so I have Max Scherzer at number 4. Trevor Bauer, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He actually did miss my list. Like you guys said, this is tough. I would have him at number 6, but to be completely honest, he's been a little too up and down for me to put him in the top 5. I think I need to see another Cy Young caliber year out of him to put him in the top 5. And I'm sure he's going to deliver that this year, next year at some point. But, I mean, you guys pretty much covered it with Scherzer. I have him at number 4 just because I think his numbers are that much more insane. I mean, yeah, by Scherzer standards, a 3.74 ERA in 67 and a third innings in a pandemic shortened season is definitely not good by his standards. But I mean, that's above average for sure. I mean, he's absolutely ridiculous. In those 67 and a third innings, he had 92 strikeouts. And I mean, on the topic of a guy who I love to go out and watch pitch, I mean, Scherzer's an absolute dog. I mean, he goes and he attacks you. He has no remorse, and it's absolutely amazing to see. He's electric. He has this awesome energy. I think he defines he's like a rare breed of starting pitcher. They don't make him like him anymore. I mean, he's got this old school mentality. I mean, when he pitched with the black eye, like that's just so old school.
You don't see that.
Yeah, that gave me major Nolan Ryan vibes. Just an absolute dog. He's just gonna go out there, just attack you and sit you down regardless. He knows he's better than you and you can't do anything about it. He's nasty, and I mean, yeah, I think he deserves to be in the top 5. For certain. So I have him in number 4 for sure.
All right. Glad you put him in the top 5 because I feel like a top 5 list is incomplete without him. And I agree with Ryan. Once again, I have Trevor Bauer at 4. Like I said, I had a Dodger on this list. It's not Walker Buehler. It's Trevor Bauer. What Bauer's done over the past 3 years has been nothing short of incredible. This 2019 season was very up and down. But if you look at it, he was a very good pitcher for the Cleveland Indians. Through July, he had 156 innings, 185 strikeouts, 3.79 ERA, and a 1.2 whip. Those are very solid numbers. And he gets traded to a brand new league, brand new team, a team that was kind of on the outside of the playoff picture when he was on a team that was in the playoff picture. And his numbers plummeted significantly. And then they brought in a new pitching coach, new pitching coordinator, Kyle Boddy of Driveline. And we know Trevor Bauer, big Driveline guy. They clicked. They connected. They made his 2020 season a season to remember. Going into free agency, he had a fantastic year. He struck out 100 guys in 73 innings, a 1.73 ERA that led all of baseball. His .795 whip led all of baseball, and he won the Cy Young. And I had to put him on my list because what he's done over the past 3 years, he's a different pitcher from what he did before those years, and that's why he's a top 5 pitcher. Now, I wish the Padres went out and got him. They went out and got some other really good pitchers too to make me not feel bad about it. But of course, I'm good.
Interesting, Dom. Last night, I watched your Snapchat story, and you're like, "Man, this guy would be a headache if he was on the Padres."
Yeah, no, that's what I was about to say, Ryan. You jumped into it, but I wouldn't deny that the Padres rotation would be better without Trevor Bauer. That's what I was getting.
Usually, that would be the best rotation in the league.
Ever. That'd be the best rotation ever.
And best rotation ever assembled.
Right. It didn't make sense once they already went out and got Yu Darvish and Blake Snow, who are just as good, and we're really tough leave off of this list. So Bauer is a top 5 pitcher in my eyes. I put him at number 4. All right. I mean, like I said, I think there's a pretty clear top 3 here. I'm going to start with my number 3, Shane Bieber, last year's American League Cy Young Award winner. You certainly could have put him in front of Garrett Cole, but I ultimately opted to keep him behind him just because I'm respecting Garrett Cole's track record over the last 3 years, as opposed to Shane Bieber's last half year, his 60-game season this past year where he was so dominant, and then the second half of last year where he was also really good. He's been incredible pitcher. He's been another one of those Cleveland guys that they've just brought up that just have so many pitches. They're so hard to hit, and they just keep pulling out guys like this, and that's why they've been able to get away with trading Trevor Bauer, trading Corey Kluber, and trading Mike Clevenger, and building up other pieces. Cleveland's going to be a fine team this year, despite the fact that they've traded those guys, and Shane Bieber is a large reason for that. Did you guys have Shane Bieber at 3, or did you opt to put someone else? Cool.
Yeah, I have Bieber at 3. Like you said, I mean, I think This was hard for me. I actually wanted to put Bieber at 2. I really, really did. But like you said, I have to respect Garrett Cole and what he's done. But yeah, I mean, just on this past year alone, I mean, it's you can't keep a guy like that out of the top 5. I mean, this past year has got to be, shortened season or not, one of the greatest starting pitching seasons like ever. I mean, an ERA plus of 281, like that's, come on, like that's ridiculous. Has anyone ever done that? Probably, but that's just insane. Not in recent memory for sure. The guy was honestly, in my opinion, as a lover of pitching, should have been MVP. I just think he's an incredible player. I think he's going to be incredible, and I think he's going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball for the next 10 years. And like you said, Dom, I mean, they lose Bauer, they lose Clevenger, they lose Kluber. They lose all these guys, and they still have such a dominant rotation. And now he's taking it over. And like a year and a half ago, nobody would consider him the ace of the staff. Everyone's saying, or maybe 2 years ago, nobody would consider him in that spot. It's like, he needs to sort of blossom into that role. Well, he was sort of thrown into the ace role and he embraced it. That's not something that's sort of easy to take on. And he definitely stepped up and performed very well in that spot. I mean, to say the least. So yeah, I have to put him at number 3 in the top 3 regardless. I think he's going to be a top 3 pitcher for a long time. So yeah.
Shane Bieber's insane. I agree. He's at number 3. And 77 in the third innings last year, had 122 strikeouts. Insane. He was electric. For anyone that bets on baseball props, every time it was a lock to put over Shane Bieber strikeouts. But the dude's insane. A 1.63 ERA, an ERA plus of 281, a whip of .866. I don't know what else you can say about him. The future is bright in Cleveland because of their pitching prospects like him and Tristan McKenzie. I think that looking at Shane Bieber, he is a top dog in the pitching realm for years to come.
And don't forget about Zach Plesac and Aaron Savali, who were both very vital parts of that rotation last year. They took my guy Cal Quantrill in the Clevenger trade, and he's going to be a stud. So let's move up the rank. I imagine we all have Garrett Cole at number 2 and Jacob deGrom at number 1. I was curious if any of you would have put Bieber in front of Cole. There would have been a legit argument for that. I personally did not agree with it. Garrett Cole should have won the Cy Young in 2019, and he finished just a few votes behind Justin Verlander, his teammate, who was also a very tough leave off of this list considering what he has done. And Garrett Cole, who's been a top 5 Cy Young Award getter in the American League for the past 3 years, ever since he finally left Pittsburgh. That's why I have a lot of faith that Joe Musgrove can be a fantastic pitcher for the Padres this year. But Garrett Cole, that lively fastball, that wipeout slider, good curveball, good changeup, he's just so good. And it's really hard to put him down at number 1, but that's just how good Jacob deGrom is. So I have Garrett Cole at number 2. You guys do as well. What else do you want to say?
You pretty much covered it. Yeah, I mean, given what he's done, you have to put him in the top 3 and at number 2. I mean, even when he was in Pittsburgh, like, he was not bad at all. I mean, he was actually really, really good. He was definitely above average. A 2.60 ERA in 2015 put him 4th in the NL Cy Young Award race. Definitely an innings guy. Racks up a lot of innings, 200+ innings for a good chunk of his career. Yeah, he probably should have won the Cy Young, to say the least, in 2019. And coming to the Yankees in this past year in 2020, he was just as good. He was as advertised, 2.84. Yeah, he's going to be good for a long time. I mean, there's nothing much else to say about it.
It took a little bit for Garrett Cole to get adjusted to the Little League ballpark that he's playing in at Yankee Stadium. But once he got adjusted, he pitched very well. And that was my worry when he signed that big contract, was there's a huge difference going from Houston to New York. So I thought he handled that pretty well. I think it's a crime he did not win the Cy Young in 19. He had 326 strikeouts. I don't know how a pitcher does that in a year. I don't. All of us were pitchers. I don't know how that's fathomable. It's insane. And Garrett Cole he's the star of that Yankee rotation. He's going to be for years to come. So, yeah, there's an argument to put Bieber ahead of him. Like Dom said, I don't agree with it personally, but if Bieber continues to pitch the way he is, then yeah,
He'll pass him. You're right.
Yeah, easily.
I mean, if you have back-to-back sub-2 ERA seasons, you're gonna move up in front of Garrett Cole. That's just the reality of it. Now, do I predict that Shane Bieber's gonna have another sub-2 year ERA? No, and that's why he's not in front of him. Jacob deGrom, best pitcher in baseball. He won the 2 Cy Youngs previous to this past year, and he had like a 2.3 ERA this past year, which of course was one-upped by Yu Darvish, who of course tough leave off on this top 5 pitchers list, and then Trevor Bauer, who 2 of us had in the top 5, and then Cole did not, but he just missed, which once again completely understandable given the guys who were on this list. I don't know what else to say about Jacob deGrom at this point. There's been stretches where he hasn't been the best pitcher in baseball, but consistently over the past several years, he's just been so dominant. He's been incredible. His fastball velocity over the past couple of years has gone from 94, 95 to 97, 98. And with that, his slider and his changeup have just been so dominant. He's so accurate with his pitches, and he's just so fun to watch. And I pray the Padres don't have to face him in the wild card game. That would just be the worst case scenario. But he's easily number 1 pitcher in baseball.
Easily. You can say about a lot of star pitchers who we could easily put in the top 5 that they struggle with one pitch that is susceptible to being hit, and that they can't have the best control over. Not with Jacob deGrom. Each one of his pitches is effective, and his arsenal is in my opinion, the best in baseball. He is insane. The fact that he continues to put up these insane numbers with a Mets offense that gives him little to no run support is insane. I think that when you're watching the Mets and you think of the Mets, it's Jacob deGrom. He is their star, and he is the reason why they are competitive anytime he's on the bump, because he doesn't get run support. So he is by far the one that keeps them in games when he is on the mound.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to keep this short, but I think Jacob deGrom is like single-handedly changing the way that teams and people value pitching. I mean, he's one of, if not the first Cy Young Award winner to have, a losing record. And that's saying something. I mean, people don't value wins as much as they did in the past, which is good. It should be that way. And like you said, Ryan, I mean, he doesn't get any run support. And as far as the pitches is concerned, he's like Zach Greinke, but with velocity. I mean, he's got 4 to 5 pitches that he can control for strikes, except he can throw a changeup at 90 plus miles an hour. He can throw a slider at 93 plus miles an hour. It's ridiculous. It's a cheat code. He's a video game. How do you face that? Yeah, I think he's the most dominant pitcher in baseball, and I think it's going to be that way for a long time, if it hasn't been already. So definitely number 1.
Yeah. So let's move over to our relief pitchers. We got around 7 minutes to get these done. Do we all have Liam Hendricks at number 1? Ryan, do you have Liam Hendricks? No. Okay. So we'll go.
I'm kidding. Yeah, he's number 1.
All right. You did get me there. I won't lie. All right. So let's go from 5 down. I'll start. I have Zach Britton at number 5, left-handed relief pitcher for the New York Yankees. They have 2 of the top 5 pitchers in all of baseball, and I have Chapman at 4. Those 2 guys are really the anchors of their bullpen, and they have been for the past couple of years. Zach Britton has been super incredible ever since his 2016 season, where he honestly should have won the Cy Young Award, and most importantly, he should have came in the American League wildcard game against the Toronto Blue Jays. We don't need to get into that, though. He's been really good since then. He had some injury problems in 2017 and then in 2018 early on, but ever since then, he's been super dominant for the Yankees, and he has to be in your top 5. Do you guys have him in there as well?
I do not.
All right. Who do you have at 5, Cole?
I got Brad Hand. I think he's definitely one of the better relievers in baseball, and definitely one of the more underrated relievers in baseball. I think the Nationals are really going to profit off of him. Yeah, I'm just going to keep mine short. But yeah, I have Hand at number 5.
Ryan, who's your 5?
Josh Hader. I know he had a rough year, but he's still an electric pitcher. He's a guy that I still have faith in. He's still a top guy to me. Don't know why.
5? 5? You put him at 5?
Yep.
All right. Okay. All right. I already gave away my 4. Cole, who's your number 4?
I have Devin Williams, and I think 1 year was all I needed to see. I mean, I think this guy now, when we're talking right now, Devin Williams has got to be the most dominant reliever in baseball. I mean, a .33 ERA in 27 innings. He had 53 strikeouts in 27 innings. That's unfathomable. Like, that's just ridiculous. He's got like the nastiest changeup ever, the airbender or whatever it's called. Just an absolute stud. And I think the Brewers have a really good back end, to say the least. So he's my number 4.
It's the second best changeup in baseball history, only behind mine, because I was able to have a 2.8 ERA my senior year. Despite throwing fastball and changeups, my fastballs went 72 miles an hour. So I like to see Devin Williams throw 70-mile-an-hour fastballs.
Yours is better than Trevor Hoffman's?
Yeah, well, because Trevor Hoffman didn't throw 70 miles an hour in high school and have a 2 ERA because of his changeup. It's just facts.
Sure.
Ryan, who's your number 4?
You had a changeup. I had a curveball. I didn't throw heat. That wasn't me. My fastball usually clocked around 75. So,
yeah,
but my number 4, I actually went with Zach Britton there. I think he is still dominant. He is, in my opinion, the anchor of the bullpen in New York, because you've seen Chapman trend down the past few years. Britton is still there. Britton is one of the best left-handed relievers in baseball, and I think that it's only going to continue, and he's going to continue to be a crucial part of that Yankee bullpen.
All right. Ryan, I'm going to swing it right back to you. Who do you have at number 3?
Brad Hand. Track record.
All right.
I'll say Brad Hand.
Yeah, Brad Hand was a tough leave-off on my list. I had him at 6, but he's right there.
Mm-hmm. I have Nick Anderson at number 3.
All right.
I love Nick Anderson. I think he's really good. Aside from the postseason this past year, and even though he hasn't thrown that many innings, I think Nick Anderson's definitely got to be one of the most dominant relievers in baseball right now. A .55 this past year and 16 1/3. Definitely the pride and joy of that Rays bullpen, and I think maybe give him a couple years before he can be slotted ahead of my number 2 and number 1 guy. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, those two guys are pretty dominant, but Nick Anderson is really, really good. So number 3 for me.
Yeah, he was so bad in the playoffs that I left him off my list, which is sad because he was so good in the second half of 2019, and then he only allowed 1 run in the regular season in 2020.
He's my number
playoff. Yeah, and then the playoffs he allowed a run or more in every single outing, including blowing Game 6 of the World Series. My number 3 is Devin Williams. Cole already mentioned it. I don't know if he should have won Rookie of the Year, but he definitely deserved to win Reliever of the Year. He was fantastic last year, like you mentioned, the strikeouts. And I'll just go ahead and give my number 2. It's Josh Hader. I don't care what he looked like last year in the second half of the season. He was fantastic. He was so good. He was my Cy Young Award prediction for the National League. And at one point, I thought there was a legit shot. And then Trevor Bauer continued to be really good. And then Josh Hader started walking guys, and then it turned bad. But Josh Hader, his fastball, absolutely electric. His slider's a wipeout pitch, and his changeup is getting better. So I put him at number 2, and like we mentioned, we all have Hendricks number 1. Cole, I assume you have Hader at number 2?
Yes, yeah. I mean, and you pretty much covered it. He's the most dominant reliever in baseball. I don't even think it's close, to be completely honest. The way that guy throws, he hides the ball really well, and then he just kind of slings it. I mean, 100+ consistently with the fastball. He's just so good. Yeah, he's definitely got to be my number 2.
Ryan, who's your number 2?
Devin Williams. All I needed to see was this year. What he did this year was incredible. And I think that he and Hader are the most dominant back end to a bullpen in the major leagues. And it's going to be something where you're going to enjoy to see for years to come, as long as those two are still in Milwaukee.
Yeah, and those two are really the reason why they are one of the favorites to win the NL Central, despite their lineup being what people would say on TikTok, dog water. So that's going to wrap up this episode of the Golden Sombrero Show. Thank you for tuning in. Pitchers and catchers reported this week. We'll come back with more rankings next week, and I guess any other free agency signings or trades that happen. On behalf of Cole Bradley and Ryan Blank, we thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next Saturday. And thank you for listening to us on Monday on BlazeRadioOnline.com.